Hello and welcome to Course Like Your Car Brochure channel, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at the Holden Commodore. Hello and welcome back, and if you're new to Course Like, we're a car brochure channel looking at car brochures from around the world from the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars and of course car brochures, please consider subscribing. It's completely free, helps you find the videos you want to see, and of course helps our channel as well. Anyway, back to today's episode. We're going to Australia for the Holden Commodore. An interesting car because obviously it relates to many European versions, the Senator and Royall, so we'll certainly be having a look at those as well. But without further ado, let's have a look at this interesting brochure from Australia. And here it is. Starts by saying, presenting the exciting Holden range, your guide to Australia's best-selling cars. Because in this particular brochure, it isn't only showing the Commodore, it's kind of showing the 1979 Holden range at the time. We're going to stick with looking at the Commodore today, but maybe if there's enough interest in these Australian Holdens, we'll have a look at the full range as the weeks go by. Because certainly there is some of these cars have some similarities with the European cars as well. Front cover is giving us a look at two models, the SLE with these rather nice headlamp wipers and these unusual wheels. I've not seen these wheels before. And if we move down, there's also an estate, or we should say station wagon version, the SL Wagon. Lower spec, as you can see, lower spec wheels, no wipers, the shame of it. But we do have these rather nice roof bars on the back there. If we turn to the back page though, it again is talking about the 79 Holdens, Australia's best selling cars, but the images are again for the Commodore, so let's have a look at those. Look at that interior, isn't it absolutely wonderful? Everything red right down to the steering wheel. We've got this big automatic gear shifter there, but I just love how everything is all colour matching in red. That was quite a striking interior for its time, and certainly even a striking interior now if you ask me. If we move down, because that is the fancy model, the luxury version, the SLE. It says the Commodore SLE interior luxury, and certainly it does look a bit luxurious for a Holden. Now if we move down, I guess this is your lower spec version, and indeed this is talking about that Wagon version, so the Commodore SL Wagon interior room, it says. Again, all matching, isn't it, in this sort of cream colour? Indeed, matching the coloured steering wheel as well. I quite like how everything matches. It's a little bit unusual for sure. But anyway, let's stick with the Holden Commodore then. Let's open the brochure up and see how it introduces it. And then we open the front page and we're greeted with a really nice image of this Commodore in red. It says at the side there, a new kind of car for Australia. And every time I see this, straight away I see Vauxhall, Royall, Opel Senator with that front end. Let's just throw one of them brochures up. In fact, the brochure I've actually thrown up to show us that front end is actually the Vauxhall Royall. The Royall was really just a rebadged Opel Senator, and it's a little bit of a complicated time where lots of rebadging and unrebadging. Now the Senator A, which these cars are kind of like based on, ran from 1978 to 1986. Would have been the Senator A, the first of the Senators. The Royall ran till 1983, when it was then rebadged itself to a Opel Senator, then unbadged, and then became a Vauxhall Senator. So a little bit of a complicated life, but certainly in the UK we had the Royall, and you can certainly see that front end there. But interesting with the Commodore, it isn't quite what it seems, because really it's only very loosely based on the Royall. Really, you could possibly argue that it had more in common with things like your Opel Rekord E, but with that sort of like Opel Senator Vauxhall Royall front end sort of grafted onto the front of it, and that was because the Holdens had to accommodate a large sort of Holden 6 or V8 in some cases engine in there, so it certainly had more of an appearance to these Royals and Opel Senators. Now that's really not where the story ended for the Commodore, because yeah, it had that front end grafted onto the Opel Rekord. Maybe I should throw an Opel Rekord on, we'll do that later maybe. So that front end of the Opel Senator grafted onto the Opel Rekord E, but like I said, not where it ended, because the body was also got some additional strengthening, because obviously the Australian outback was quite harsh conditions as well, so there were some changes, and of course because it was more based on an Opel Rekord, it wasn't as big as the Royall or equivalent Opel Senator. It was actually a little bit smaller. Anyway, now if we want to get like super crazy nerdy on these sort of facts and figures, if we want to look at sort of the lengths of these cars, so a Senator itself was, the full length was 4,811 millimeters for a Senator. Now a Rekord, which these Commodores were more based on, the Rekord was a much smaller car, or certainly a smaller car, at 4,644 millimeters. Now the Commodore was actually somewhere in between. They range from like 4,705 to 4,729 millimeters, so an actual size in between the Rekord and the Senator. And that's because it was a Rekord, but it had that sort of slightly longer nose, different grafted on Senator from nose for the larger engine, so it strangely fitted in between those two lengths. And maybe I'm getting a bit too nerdy, I don't know, maybe I might delete this section later on. It's getting a little bit crazy and a little bit too nerdy possibly, but there we go. Anyway, we should go back to our Commodore brochure. Let's see how it introduces it. So the Commodore sedans and wagons are breakthrough Holdens that set new automotive standards in comfort, equipment and handling. The most striking proof of a Commodore's up-to-the-minute design is Commodore's size. On the outside, Commodore is compact, providing the manoeuvrability that today's drivers expects. But inside, Commodore sedans and wagons are as roomy as conventional automobiles, and this really gives you an indication that in Australia, the Australian public expected a larger car, where in UK and Europe, this is a pretty big car anyway, isn't it? In almost every respect, energy conservation is yet another prime consideration of Commodore's total design efficiency. Commodore's aerodynamic profile, the result of extensive wind tunnel testing, contributes significantly to fuel economy at highway speeds. Another factor in fuel efficiency is weight reduction, and at 12-19 kilograms, Commodore places fewer petrol consumption demands on engines than do heavier cars. Driving Commodore is a pleasure because Commodore embodies the finest expression yet of Holden's famous radial tuned suspension. As for standard features, even the lowest priced Commodore sedans and wagons come equipped with quartz halogen headlights, steel belted radials, tinted laminated windscreen and push button AM radio. Then there's a lavishly equipped Commodore SL in both sedan and wagon models, And for those seeking total luxury, the sumptuous Commodore SLE sedan. What about the price? Perhaps the best news yet. Talk to your Holden dealer. You'd be amazed that such an amazing car could be so moderately priced. Little image at the side, a little bit of a medallion by the looks of it. The Wheels Magazine Car of the Year for outstanding achievement in automobile design, awarded to General Motors Holdens for the Commodore 1978. Going back to that front image, yes, this is the top of the range Commodore, the SLE, and you can see those lovely headlight wipers. Interesting grille, little Holden badge on there, and these wraparound style bumpers. Very much a Royall Senator front end, as we've discussed. On the side there is the badge there, the Commodore SLE, and these very interesting, well, they certainly look like alloy wheels, which are very unusual, and I quite like them actually. And this model has got sort of like a pinstriping going down it, and also these protective strips to protect your car against, you know, your supermarket road rash. But if we go to the back, and that's, yes, if you can peek in, you can see that this has got this red interior, so red paintwork and that full red interior, red steering wheel, quite a striking design. But what I was going to say is, if we look at the rear, we can see that certainly is a bit of a different rear end on there compared to the Senators and Royals. That's our Vauxhall Royall rear end on there. You can also see this is kind of like a separate sort of little window on the back, just showing you that it's a bit of an extra length. Interesting wheels on this Royall as well. And even if we throw the Senator up, the Senator rear end there, and that's like I say, a little bit of a different sloping rear end to what we've got in the Commodore. And even if we do finally throw that Rekord brochure up, and then if I throw the Rekord brochure up showing that rear end, I hope you can kind of like see, we can see the window treatment is the same as this one, and you can see this more of a sort of rounded rear end like the Rekord had. And overall, I love Australian cars because of this. Like, the same thing, you know, as someone from Europe would say, oh look, there is an Opel Senator, for example, and then, you know, you start to look at it and think, well, it is, but it isn't. So I find that really fascinating, and I really do like Australian cars anyway, but I do like them for that as well, seeing those sorts of similarities to the European cousins. Then if we turn the page, we start looking at the Wagon versions of the Commodore. You also get a bit of a sneak peek of what other things are in this brochure. But anyway, let's keep on with the Commodore. Let's have a look at some of the text for the Wagon version. So he starts by saying, Commodore the Wagon, we've made plenty of room for you. Room for 5, plus the biggest rear carrying space of any Holden wagon. Open up the big, easy loading one-piece rear door and you're greeted with a flat, unobstructed floor area that, with the rear seats down, is over 6 feet in length. Plenty of height and width as well, but plenty of room isn't all there is to the wagon. It tells us that the newest version of our now famous RTS, radial tuned suspension of course, was engineered specifically with wagon buyers in mind. Rear shock absorbers have been inclined to fit beneath the floor, thus allowing for a flat load area. And the wagon's rear springing gives flatter, smoother ride under heavy loads. You'll appreciate the difference with your first drive. Or city streets or country roads, loaded or unloaded, the new Commodore wagon manoeuvres with a sure-footed agility that makes it a true driver's vehicle. It goes on to tell us, and as you can see, it does so with a stylish elan that distinguishes it from any other wagon on the road today. You'll also find all the amenities associated with the Commodore sedan in the new Commodore wagon. That, as you probably know, is saying quite a lot. Plus, there's extra rust protection from sealed body panels of pre-coated steel. Anyone who had one of these? Were they good at resisting rust? Any better than Fords? Let me know in the comments. It continues by telling us, and on a Commodore SL Wagon, a wide sweeping rear window, wiper and integrally designed roof rack are both included as standard. There is, of course, much more to know about the extraordinary new Commodore Wagon, all of which you can learn from your Holden dealer. In fact, consider this your invitation to take the Wagon for a test drive at your Holden dealers soon. And there is the Wagon version in SL trim, lovely big roof boys on there. Quite like the wheels actually, even though I think they're probably just steel wheels. Sadly, no wipers though for those headlamp wiper enthusiasts. And if we go down, we're once more greeted with that interior of the Wagon. And there we go, I'll show you the rear on there as well. So a pretty useful vehicle. We can see we've just got, you know, keep fit manually winding windows on these cars in SL trim, as you can see. Back end is interesting. Obviously it's a very practical car, but also if we can like compare it to this time I decided to throw up a Vauxhall Carlton from the 70s this time. If we zoom in on that, similar sort of rear end treatment, although Vauxhall in the UK always used to put these like your droop snoot designs on their front ends, didn't they? Okay, so engine sizes for these Commodores in 79, we've got a 2.85cc going up to a 4.2 for that SLE sedan. And also it's showing us there we couldn't get the SLE in Wagon form, unfortunately, so looks like we couldn't get them wipers for the Wagon, which is a little bit sad, isn't it? So the big SLE had a 4.2 8-cylinder engine, which is certainly interesting. So the gearbox, yeah, you could have a manuals and automatics. So it's like automatic only for the big engine models and all that. Just that 2.85cc was using a manual, the rest were automatic transmission. Senators from this time in Europe were obviously more commonly seen with this badge on there. Yeah, we used a 3 litre or a 2968cc 6-cylinder engine. What I did used to like about the Senator is the rear lights. Use this sort of darkened treatment, which is very early on. You can't like think of this for more of an 80s thing, but this particular example is from July 78. So I used to like the rear end on these European Senators, I must admit. But anyway, let's wrap it up. And I've just turned the page to the back there and kind of like confirms there's the publication date, August 1979. I do overall enjoy looking at these Australian cars. I hope you do too, whether you're from Europe or indeed from Australia. I hope you enjoy and don't mind me actually looking at your wonderful cars on on YouTube, and indeed compare it to the European cars as well. I love seeing those sorts of similarities and also the differences as well. Thank you so much for watching today. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, that would be most grateful, and of course it helps you not miss an episode, and most importantly it's completely free, and we all like free, don't we? Thank you so much for watching. I put a couple of little extra boxes on there. They're different videos you can click on if you've got time. But overall, thank you so much for watching today, and please do jot in your comments and experiences with these Commodores if you know them. Thank you so much. Take care. All the best and goodbye.